I'm going to go over the payday terms real quick too, because I don't think I did that last week. So, if I went over. Do what? Oh, is it worth 5 points? Is it worth your hall pass?
I get pencil.
You can borrow one, you can in here until it runs out. Okay, so let's look at the payday terms. Okay, so most of these are word parts, now that you guys know how to put them all together. The first one is enter, okay, which is between. I think on the next one, there's 2 that are really similar to each other. Enter is a prefix that means between, and intra means inside. So those are 2, when you're learning them, if you ever see that other word, don't get those 2 mixed up. But enter is between. Okay. Like intercostal, what would that mean? I don't know what costal is. Between. Yeah. Between something, yes. Costal. Right, cost a lot to eat these. If you buy them to eat, they cost a lot. That's how I remember it. Costos ribs. So intercostal would be between the ribs, like the muscles between the ribs. Okay, trophy means formation, or sometimes it can mean growth, or like a, what would atrophy be? A at the beginning of the word. A or an at the beginning of a term. With formation? Atrophy. And be what? Not with.
Without.
But without. Okay, so without or none, no formation, whatever. Okay, vertebro is vertebrae, which is the bones in your spine. Pre means before. That's one that you guys know that one already. Retro means behind. That one's easy to remember. Think about retro, back in time. Retro is behind. Cephalo is head. I've seen that one. That was on your projects that you did. I just don't think we've had it as an actual term yet. Leuco is white, like leukemia, for example. Emia is a suffix that means what?
Blood.
Blood. Yes, blood. Blood what? Specific. Do what? Okay. Cells. Not cells, but you're on the right track with blood. It's a blood condition. So leukemia is a condition of the white cells, which it is. It's the white blood cells. Okay, a leukocyte would be what?
White cell.
Yes, good. So that's a white blood cell, so leukocyte. Good. Okay, scopy is the process of viewing. Okay, see how that changes? We've had scope before, right? And what is that?
Like you use that.
Right, you use it, right? It's the instrument to view. Okay, scopy changes the meaning just a little bit. This is like the process of viewing. Okay, so an otoscope is the instrument you use to look, but otoscopy would be the process of me looking at something. Okay, does that make sense? See how that one letter kind of changes? Doesn't really change the whole meaning. It still means, it still has the same, it's still in the same realm, but it changes the type of word it is, I guess. Okay, opsy is also the process of viewing. So an autopsy, like auto means self. Okay, that one's pretty easy. Think about automatic, right? It starts by itself or runs by itself. Auto correct, right? It corrects by itself. You don't have to do it. So an autopsy literally means the process of viewing self, which is not really what happens, but. So a biopsy would be what? Remember what bio means? Bio, the root word. Life. So biology would be the study of life. Logy is the study of, but yes. Now, bi at the beginning of a word, like a prefix, is to or both. You're right about that too. So a biopsy would be the process of viewing life, which is basically what it is. Somebody takes a biopsy, they're looking at tissue to see how it's growing. All right, and then the last few are all new. Some of them may be old. Abbreviations. So SX is symptom. What is a symptom? Could sometimes side effects are symptoms. Sure. What is a symptom? If you have a cold, how would you describe the symptoms? Good. Coughing, runny nose. So symptom is something that you exhibit in response to something foreign. Maybe it's a disease or an infection or some kind of chemical that's been introduced or whatever. Okay, WBC is white blood cell. What's the other name for a white blood cell we just said? Leukocyte. Good. Okay, ABN is abnormal. WNL is within normal limits, and that's talking about like their vital signs, or maybe they do an assessment. Maybe they're checking out your nose. Everything's WNL. It's within normal limits. And then the last one is S with a line over it is without. We may have had that one before. What is with? Good review because you'll want this review anyway for this semester exam. What's with? Abbreviation for with.
Oh, C with the
C with the line over it. So S with the line over it is without. Okay. All right. So those are, that's that. All right, let's talk about growth charts. Okay, I get all the notes. All right. Now look at growth charts. You've probably seen growth charts before. If you look on the back, there's some blank growth charts. You've probably seen these before. I'm going to let you guys map yourselves on there in just a little bit. Just something that it's really important when you're younger. Once you get to kind of a place where you've stopped growing, growth charts don't necessarily mean anything anymore because you look more at like your height to weight ratio versus are you still growing, obviously once you stop. So, and kids can range. I mean, we'll talk about that. All right, so it says about growth charts. Is look at any class picture and you'll see kids of the same age in all shapes and sizes. Some kids look tiny next to their peers, while others stand head and shoulders above. As easy as it is to make these comparisons and to draw conclusions about what you see, the reality is that kids grow at their own pace. Big, small, tall, short. It's a wide range of healthy shapes and sizes. There's no one ideal shape or size. Genetics, gender, nutrition, physical activity, health problems, environment, hormones, lifestyle factors like nutrition or physical activity all can influence height and weight. And many of these can vary widely from family to family. And so how does a doctor figure out whether a child's height and weight measurements are, quote, normal, or if they're developing on track, or if there's some kind of health problems that are affecting their growth? The doctor uses growth charts to help answer those questions. So here's some things. I'm going to teach you guys how to read a growth chart and how to plot one. As growth charts are a standard part of any checkup, and they show healthcare providers how kids are growing compared with other kids of the same age and gender. So anytime you're looking at a growth chart, it's always a comparison of other kids, said same gender, same age. And ours is really just for the U.S. It may change between different cultures as well. It Says these allow doctors and nurses to see the pattern of kids' height and weight over time and whether they're developing proportionately. So somebody may be small, it may be on the smaller end of the percentile, but as long as they stay along that same route and they're still growing, they're not going backwards, it's not really a concern. Right? It's the same thing if they're on the upper end of the percentile. Because let's say a child was growing along the same pattern until he was 2 and then suddenly started growing at a much slower rate than other kids. That might indicate a health problem. That's something they could see. Even though maybe, you know, for example, maybe this 2-year-old was on the upper end of the normal weight. They've been growing along and adding to it, staying about the same rate of growth. They're not going to be worried. But if all of a sudden they get to 2 and they have their checkup, and their weight didn't change between the last appointment and that appointment, they're going to say, okay, what's going on? Maybe there's something, you know, whatever it might be. It says, if a growth chart shows a different pattern, is there a problem? Not necessarily. The doctor will interpret the growth charts in the context of the child's overall well-being, environment, and genetic background. Is the child meeting other developmental milestones? And that's a big one. You know, are they developing normally in other areas? Are they eating the way that they're supposed to? Are they becoming more independent the way they're supposed to? Are they, you know, are they reaching other things? Are they seeing things like they're supposed to? It says, are there other signs that the child is not healthy? How tall or heavy are their parents and siblings? Were they born prematurely? That changes things. Has a child started puberty earlier or later than average? These are all things that they use to help discover if there's really a problem. Okay, so girls and boys are measured on different growth charts, which makes sense. One set of charts is used for babies from birth to 36 months, and then another set of charts is used for kids from 2 to 20. That's because, why do you think there's 2 different charts? Yes, definitely. And you think about, like I think about Micah, he's 17 months old. So, okay, when he was born, he weighed 7 pounds, 9 ounces. Now he weighs like 19 pounds. He's really small for his age, but he's doubled his weight. Okay, well, what if from the time you were 12, you doubled your weight by the time you went to 14?
260.
Yeah, exactly, right? That would be a pretty huge change in a matter of 2 years. So obviously we don't, you know, as the older you get, I say we, I don't know why I'm including myself in quit growing a long time ago, but, you know, for you guys, you're not going to grow as fast as a baby would. In comparison, you know, they may grow like Hannah has grown probably 3 inches since her birthday in February. You know, 3 inches doesn't sound like that big of a deal in a year, especially if you're in like junior high growth spurt or early high school. But when you think about it compared to her height, you know, that's a big jump. I mean, I think she's 38 inches and 39 inches. You know, that's a big jump when you're only considering that height. Okay, so good. That's why those are different. It says another set of charts is used for kids, or there's special growth charts used for children with certain conditions such as Down syndrome or something else. All right, so look at these. This is kind of the standard one. So you have your weight for age percentiles. You go over here. Right? And then on the back, it's got stature. That's just height. Right? Height for age. Now, when we start looking at adults, and you can do BMI at your age, it's no big deal, but we're going to do that in a second. They look at height versus weight, not age versus height. Yeah, there's like a big long process. But I've got some cheat ways to do it. So it says up until the time babies are 36 months old, doctors measure weight, length, and head circumference. And that's another thing they watch really closely those first 3 years is what's the circumference around their head to make sure that it's growing the way it needs to as well. It says with older kids, doctors measure weight, height, and body mass index. So we're going to do that too. It says, why is head circumference measured? And I didn't put that one on here because we're not going to measure each other's head circumferences. But Says in babies, head circumference can provide clues about brain development. If their head is bigger or smaller than most other kids, or if it stops growing really quickly, then that can signify that there's an issue. Maybe there's a bone issue, right, with their skull itself. Maybe there's a brain issue. Maybe there's a fluid that's on their brain. That could be a problem too. It says, for example, an unusually large head may be a sign of hydrocephalus. So what do you think? What is hydrocephalus? What words do you hear in there? Hydro, which would be? Water. Cephalo is head. So whenever you hear, sometimes you'll hear about babies being born with water in the brain or pressure on their brain. That's what that is. That's hydrocephalus. Okay, percentile. So let's talk about the word percentiles because that's what you see on your growth chart. Sometimes this takes a minute to get it. So let's talk about these. It says percentiles are measurements that show where a child is compared with others. So again, we're not just saying, you versus you. We're saying what that child's measurement is in comparison to an average of all children that same age and gender. Okay? It's not just comparing it with one or two others. It says when doctors plot a child's weight and height on the chart, they see which percentile line those measurements land on. The higher the percentile number, the bigger a child is compared with other kids of the same age and gender. Whether it's for height or weight, the lower the percentile number, the smaller the child is. So, for example, a 4-year-old boy's weight is in the 10th percentile. That means, listen, that 10% of boys that age weigh less than he does. So let's just go look at your growth chart on here. Let's look on this growth chart. I'll show you how to read it. Okay. All right, so let's look at this one. All right, so let's say we've got a 7-year-old boy that is, let's say, 4 feet 4 inches. So how many inches is that? Because this is all in inches. How many inches is 4 feet 4 inches?
52.
52. Okay, everybody know how to figure that?
Yeah.
Okay, feet times 12, and then you add that to come up the remainder. Okay, so on the 7, okay, he's 7 years old. He's 52 inches, so find your 7 at the bottom. Okay, and if you go up here to 52, okay, can you see how to do that? On 7, mark it at 52. Okay, so your percentile lines are these that we just plotted on, and it tells you right up here, okay, what number the percentile lines is. So what line is that one on?
The top was the 97.
Yeah, it's 97. Okay, so that means that kid is in the 97th percentile for their height. So what we're saying with the percentile, this is the easiest way to understand it, okay, is with kids. So that child, let's say his name is Jack.
Jose.
So Jack then his height, that means he is taller than 97% of other 7-year-old boys. Now, this is just an approximation. Obviously, we don't know exactly how many boys he's taller than in the whole United States. But according to average heights, he is taller than 97% of other boys same age. Okay? Now, he's not 97% taller. Okay, that would be like double everybody's height. He's taller. That means if you line him up with 100 kids, okay, he's going to be somewhere around the top 3 tallest kids in that group. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, what do you notice as the lowest percentile? Third. Why do you think it doesn't go all the way to 0 or all the way to 100?
Can't calculate that.
Yeah, you can't like do it. It'd be easier to just calculate it by that. Yeah.
Why do you think that?
Start at fruit making. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if he was 100%, if he was taller than 100% of other kids in the United States, he would be the tallest kid in the U.S.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know that. So be it. That's when it goes to 97. And if it's tall, if they plot up here somewhere, they just say they're over the 97th percentile. Or if they plotted down here somewhere, they just say they were less than the 3rd percentile. Okay? And you never know. Kids are different. Okay? Hannah, she's almost 4. I'll plot hers on here in a minute, but I don't know where she is. Actually, I didn't. Not what she was. I haven't measured her either. Okay. Anyway, she was always growing up 97th percentile. Always. She just trekked along that line. Not on this one, obviously. But that's how every time we went in for an appointment, she was 95th percentile, 90th percentile, 97th percentile, somewhere in there. Micah hangs out around the 3rd and the 5th percentile. But he's pretty well stayed in that same area. It's just the way it is. He's really tall. She was always really tall. So kids are different. But that's how you plot that. So does the percentile part make sense? Everybody understand how it's like comparison? Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to let you guys, once we kind of get done in a second, I'm going to let you guys plot yourselves on here. Okay, so you guys will use the ones that say 2 to 20 years. Okay, and then girls, you guys will use the one on the other side that says, yeah. All right, so let's look at, where do they get percentiles? It says the Center for Disease Control and Prevention created the growth charts that are most commonly used in the U.S. So they were last updated in 2000. So they just take vast amounts of information collected about kids' heights, and then they create this percentile chart based on the average growth, or average at that every age. Do what? Oh. Never mind. Oh. All right, it says there's no ideal number. I think that's important to know. There's no, like I said, with my kids, one's 97, one's 30. It says that here's one thing I do want you to take note of. It says, what can signal a problem? Because when a child's height or weight percentile changes from a certain pattern that it's been following. Okay, so if Hannah, for example, had trekked along at the 97th percentile, okay, for a long time, and then all of a sudden we went in for her next appointment and she was down at the 50th, they're going to say, okay, she's kind of quit growing, like what, her diet changed, or what's going on, something stressing, is there some kind of stress, what is it? Y'all don't plot yourselves yet. So I'm going to let you guys wait. I'm going to teach you guys how to use that scale back there and the height thing. So, says, for example, if the height and weight consistently are on the 60th percentile line until they're 5, and then the height drops to the 30th percentile at age 6, that might indicate there's been some kind of issue. And there can be that can show lots of things. It doesn't mean that they have specifically a growth problem. It could be that they have some kind of blood issue or oxygen problem, or maybe they've been on a new medication that has made it where they won't grow. Steroids, for example, decrease growth.
Looks like it's gonna be so short now.
Because when kids don't get taller at the same rate at which they're gaining weight. Okay, so if the kid weighs, so let's say their weight is in the 97th percentile, but their height is in the 20th percentile. What are they going to look like? Yeah, right, they're going to be overweight. And if their weight is way high up on the percentile and their height is way low. And that's going to give you an indication that they're probably overweight. Right? If it's about the same, you don't have to worry about that so much. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys about BMI, and then we'll let you guys do both. So when we're done, I want you guys to show you guys how to use the scale back here. And you'll get your height and your weight on that, and then you can chart it on your growth chart. I want you to turn that in, and then you'll write your BMI on there as well. All right, so let's look at BMI, body mass index. So you can That's one of the biggest questions guys and girls have as they grow and develop is whether they're the right weight. One place to start is by learning about body mass index, or BMI, calculation that estimates how much body fat a person has based on his or her height and weight. He says it can help doctors identify people who are overweight and at risk of developing medical problems. So they have a BMI calculator on here too. That's what it looks like. All this does, all your body mass indexes is a comparison of your height versus your weight. And everybody's still different. There's no, there's a range of what's healthy or not healthy, but sometimes a lot of it depends on, physical activity and the other things that I talked about. So don't just take this and think it means something crazy. So. Okay, there's a couple things you guys only have this one.
Okay.
But this one, you just hit the on button. I'll hit set, and it goes on, and you can put in your height and weight on here. And it's supposed to take your heart rate. So you can do that. Now, these are the wheels, so once you can actually use these to kind of plot your BMI. So all you do is on this side, you take your weight, your height's on this inner wheel. So like I am 63 inches, somewhere in there. Okay, 5'3". I take that and then you add it up with your weight on the outside wheel. So my weight's 115. Then I would measure up my 63 on the inside and I'd line it up with my weight on the outside. Okay, and that gives you your BMI number right here. Okay, so my BMI is 20.5 or something, 20 and a half, whatever.
So it takes your weight and your.
No, it doesn't take your weight. You enter it on here. So once you get your height and weight, you match them up. Do it. Yes. I want you to use this one.
It's like if you're over 25.
So, or weigh somebody else at least. He doesn't mind. Okay, and then on the back, listen, once you get your BMI number on this side, okay, then you go on this side and you put in your age. So we're going to say that I'm 20. Even though we all know I'm not. Okay, and then you look down here and it tells you, so my BMI was 20, okay, I'm at the 45th percentile. Okay, and it tells you down here. So once you figure those out, I do want everybody to get your height and weight. I'll show you guys how to use this one.